My wife, Emily, and I met through a blind date. As my buddy John would say, our marriage progressed at triple speed.
You guys moved so fast! Confirmed your relationship in 3 days, engaged in a month, married in 2 months, and by the third month, Emily was already expecting.
The day we found out she was pregnant, I was so excited I couldn't sleep all night. Due to the nature of my job, I spent almost half of each month living on construction sites.
It was rare for your boss to give you a 10-day leave for the wedding, and you still managed to conceive during that time.
After Emily got pregnant, she went back to her parents' house. I understood how tough pregnancy could be and didn't want my mom to take care of her, fearing any potential mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts.
8 months later, Mali had a premature delivery. I was on a business trip and couldn't make it back in time. When I finally returned,
Look, honey, our baby boy.
John, didn't you say the baby was premature? Look at that thick black hair and chubby cheeks, it doesn't seem like it. Look at this baby, doesn't he look about the same size as our Ryan when he was a month old?
At that time, I defended Emily.
It must be because I have good milk. I managed to make the baby so plump in just a month.
Emily and I have been married for 7 years, and she has given me 2 daughters and a son. Speaking of our son, Emily risked her life to bring him into the world.
Being an older mother, the pregnancy is risky and unstable. If you want to keep it, it would require constant care.
I tried to persuade Emily. Emily, I'm not the kind of person who insists on having a son. We already have 2 lovely daughters. I'm content.
I feel guilty for having 2 daughters in a row, and this child has to be kept.
Hearing this, I felt both heartbroken and touched. My parents, being conservative, were quite dissatisfied with Emily for having 2 daughters, even though they didn't show it openly. Emily took it to heart. On the day of the delivery, Emily, being an older mother, experienced severe complications and lost a significant amount of blood. It took 4,000 millimeters of blood transfusions to bring her back from the brink. After this ordeal, I realized how important Emily and the children were to me. Not long after, I quit my job on the construction site and found a job closer to home so I could be there every day. I don't know if it was my imagination, but after I quit my job and came home, Emily, who used to be very enthusiastic, suddenly became distant. At night, when I wanted to hold her while sleeping, she would push me away.
Hopeful, Emily, I can help with a baby. It won't disturb my sleep or work.
Shy, no, I need to nurse the baby at night. It's better if we sleep in separate rooms.
Frustrated, I couldn't hold it in any longer and arranged to meet John for a drink. Fueled by alcohol, I told John about the situation.
Sad. I used to come home only a few times a month, and she was always so enthusiastic. But now everything has changed.
Friendly, hey, buddy, have you ever heard the saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder? Distance creates beauty.
Angry. But it shouldn't be like this. Michael is already 7 months old, and we haven't been intimate even once. Not once. I'm a normal man. I have needs.
Serious, your wife went through a lot to bring Michael into the world. It's natural for her to have some emotional scars. Be more understanding.
Thinking back to the day Michael was born, I suddenly felt that John made sense. After drinking, I thoughtfully brought Emily a cup of milk tea. Emily was in the bathroom washing Michael's clothes, with her phone on the coffee table playing a TV show. I placed the milk tea next to her phone and suddenly saw a WeChat message pop up. Emily, was our son good today? Boom! It felt like a bolt from the blue. What did that message mean? I picked up the phone and glanced towards the bathroom. Emily was still washing clothes and hadn't noticed. I quickly tried to unlock her WeChat, but it was password protected. After 2 failed attempts, I heard the bathroom door opening, so I quickly switched the phone back to the TV show and pretended to sit on the sofa. After hanging the clothes, Emily took her phone and the milk tea and went back to the guest room. I also went back to my room, but my mind was filled with that message. Emily, was our son good today? I imagined all sorts of possibilities. Was the child not mine? Had Emily been unfaithful? Was I raising someone else's child? Just as I was about to lose my mind and confront Emily directly, my phone suddenly received a text message. Thank you for raising my son. I stared at the text message, as if trying to burn a hole through the phone with my eyes. After a long while, I finally mustered the courage to dial the number from the message, but it was turned off. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the WeChat conversation on Emily's phone and the mysterious text message. The next day after work, I met up with John for a drink again, and he brought along his new apprentice, Jake.
Bro, what's going on? We had a good talk yesterday.
John poured me a drink. I took the glass and downed it in one gulp. Feeling unsatisfied, I grabbed the bottle and chugged it down. John and Jake watched me, guessing something must have happened.
What's wrong?
Little brother, I think I've been cheated on.
I said with a bitter smile, explaining how I accidentally saw a WeChat message on Emily's phone and the text message I received last night. The more John listened, the deeper his frown became.
That can't be. Emily doesn't seem like that kind of person. You must be overthinking.
I don't want to believe it either. But look at this.
I took out my phone and showed John the message, who then passed it to Jake. Seeing them both silent, I opened another beer and chugged it down.
Bro, if you have doubts, just get a paternity test. Don't talk nonsense. You don't know anything. Don't suggest a paternity test.
Jake looked at me, then lowered his head and continued eating his skewers without saying another word.
Hey, bro, don't listen to him. He's just a kid. Eat, don't think too much. It's probably just a misunderstanding. Talk to Emily in a couple of days and clear things up.
Throughout the meal, John kept advising me to avoid unnecessary trouble.
Think about it, you've been married to Emily for so many years. Have you ever bought her any gifts? Maybe just in the first few years of marriage. Has she ever complained? Emily has had it tough too. When she gave birth to your first 2 children, you weren't there. She was alone in the delivery room and did her postpartum recovery at home. She keeps the house clean and tidy for you, so you have no worries. You should be grateful.
Listening to John's rambling, I suddenly frowned and stared at him.
Are you trying to cover up because it's you?
Before I could finish, John slammed the table.
What the hell are you talking about? I'm trying to help you. Don't blame me for your problems.
I knew John meant well. Although the divorce rate is high nowadays, for those of us from rural areas, divorce is still a shameful thing. And it's even more shameful if the reason for the divorce is infidelity. That night, I thought about John's words. Maybe he was right, Emily was indeed a perfect wife. She never compared herself to others and was always content with what she had. She kept the house spotless. When my mom got sick, a single call from me, and Emily would take her to the hospital and handle everything. Even when I sometimes forgot her birthday, she never complained. But no matter how good Emily was, that WeChat message in the text still felt like a thorn in my heart. I thought about Jake's suggestion. If worst comes to worst, I could get a paternity test. As long as the child was mine, that would be enough. I defended Emily at the time, trying to ease the tension.
It must be because my wife has good milk. She managed to make the baby so plump in just a month.
Emily and I had been married for 7 years. She had given me 2 daughters and a son. Speaking of our son, Emily risked her life to bring him into the world. When Emily first got pregnant, the doctor advised against keeping the baby, saying it was risky for an older mother. I tried to persuade her otherwise.
Emily, we already have 2 lovely daughters. I'm content. You don't have to go through this.
No, James. The Smith family needs a son to carry on the family name. I feel guilty for having 2 daughters in a row. This child must be kept.
Hearing this, I felt both heartbroken and touched. My conservative parents were dissatisfied with having 2 daughters, although they didn't show it openly. Emily took it to heart. On the day of delivery, Emily experienced severe complications and lost a significant amount of blood. It took 4,000 millimeters of blood transfusions to bring her back from the brink. After this ordeal, I realized how important Emily and the children were to me. Shortly after, I quit my job on the construction site and found a job closer to home so I could be there every day. It must be because my wife has good milk. She managed to make the baby so plump in just a month. I defended Emily with a smile.
Emily and I have been married for 7 years, and she has given me 2 daughters and a son.
Speaking of our son, Emily risked everything to bring him into the world. The doctor had warned us, given her age, that the pregnancy was highly risky.
Emily, we already have 2 lovely daughters. I'm content. You don't have to go through this.
John, I need to give the Smith family a son. I feel guilty for only having daughters. This child has to be kept.
Her determination broke my heart. Even my conservative parents, who were dissatisfied with having 2 daughters, weighed heavily on her mind. The day of delivery was harrowing. Emily lost an immense amount of blood, requiring 4,000 millimeters of transfusions to save her. That ordeal made me realize the invaluable place Emily and our children held in my heart.
Not long after, I quit my job on the construction site and found work closer to home.
I turned to look at my parents, who were silent. I was truly afraid that they might suddenly start advising me to let things go for the sake of the children.
Since the children aren't from our Smith family, there's no need to continue this. Get a divorce.
Emily and her parents were immediately agitated.
Why divorce? Why divorce? John, I gave you 3 children. Why are you divorcing me?
Because none of these 3 children are mine.
Seeing my outburst, their arrogance diminished, and they fell silent. Emily was taken back to her hometown by her parents. I began contacting a lawyer. Our property division was simple. The house and car were bought by me before the marriage, so they were my premarital assets. Emily hadn't worked for years and had been raising 3 children, so we didn't have much in savings. The lawyer said I could ask Emily for child support for the past few years and compensation for the emotional distress she caused me. After some thought, I decided not to make things too ugly since we had been married. But who knew that during the court hearing, Emily not only insisted that the paternity test was forged but also demanded the house and car in the property division.
I was truly enraged. I had intended to leave some room for decency, but she went even further. So, following the lawyer's advice, I demanded child support for the 3 children and compensation for the emotional distress she caused me.
Since Emily refused to undergo another paternity test, the original test results were deemed valid. In the end, not only did I keep my assets, but Emily was also ordered to pay me an additional $100,000 in emotional distress compensation and child support for the 3 children. As I walked out of the courthouse, Emily's family pointed at me and cursed.
John, you'll get your comeuppance for taking back the child support.
My parents, worried that I might not handle things well, insisted on bringing me back home and advised me to sell the old house.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Letting go of the old makes way for the new.
They comforted me this way. In the days immediately following the divorce, Emily would still send me messages, sometimes threatening, sometimes apologizing, making me think she had a split personality. But this only lasted for a week, and then I never heard from Emily again. A month later, John invited me out for a drink, and at the dinner table, I heard news about Emily again. Her ex-boyfriend was thrilled to hear about her divorce. He quickly took Emily and the 3 children back to his place.
So eager?
Didn't Emily tell him about the divorce earlier?
That guy's family is poor, and he's just a drifter. When he's out of money, he does odd jobs, and when he has money, he just lazes around at home. You know how it is nowadays, without real skills, no one wants to hire you at 35.
I was a bit surprised. I had thought he was someone impressive, someone Emily would willingly have 3 children for, but it turned out he was just this? Suddenly, I felt a sense of defeat. I couldn't even compare to a man like that. I stood up for Emily. It must be because my wife has good milk. She managed to make the baby so plump in just a month. Emily and I had been married for 7 years, and she had given me 2 daughters and a son. When Emily was pregnant with our son, the doctor had advised against keeping the baby, saying it was risky and unstable. The pregnancy required constant care.
Emily, I'm not the kind of person who insists on having a son. We already have 2 lovely daughters. I'm content.
James, I feel guilty for having 2 daughters in a row. This child has to be kept.
Hearing this, I felt heartbroken and touched. My parents, being conservative, were dissatisfied with Emily for having 2 daughters. Emily took it to heart. On the day of the delivery, Emily, being an older mother, experienced severe complications and lost a significant amount of blood. It took 4,000 millimeters of blood transfusions to bring her back from the brink. I realized how important Emily and the children were to me. Not long after, I quit my job on the construction site and found a job closer to home so I could be there every day. I didn't originally intend to make a fuss. If she wanted to play the victim to make money, so be it. But I didn't expect her to get a taste for it. Not only did she start live streaming herself, but she also involved her parents, distorting the truth and slandering me. Later, she even started spreading rumors that I was unfaithful and involved in illicit activities. My personal information was quickly dug up by netizens and posted online. My account was bombarded with comments, most of which were either cursing me or my parents. Some even edited my photo to look like a memorial picture.
Enough was enough.
That night, while Emily was live streaming, I started my own live stream and connected with her directly. She seemed a bit confused and took a while to accept the connection.
Emily, you know that slandering me online can have legal consequences, right? I said with a smile, waving the paternity test report in front of the camera.
The netizens went wild.
The person involved is responding.
Oh boy, this is getting interesting.
This guy actually dares to face the accusations. Is there going to be a twist?
Emily and her parents' expressions twisted on the other side of the camera.
James, can't we discuss this offline?
What's there to discuss offline? What can't the netizens know?
Yeah, what can't we know?
With the netizens egging her on, Emily's face started to turn red.
Folks, the reason for my divorce from Emily is right here on this report. I'll bring it closer so you can see for yourselves.
I moved the report closer to the camera, focusing on the words, "not the biological father."
Oh my.
Is this shocking revelation free to watch?
So, none of the 3 kids are his.
She has some nerve, making someone else pay child support for kids that aren't his.
My sympathies to the ex-husband.
I shouldn't have doubted the ex-husband.
The twist and the face slapping came quickly. Emily hadn't expected it. Seeing the netizens who had been on her side suddenly turn against her, she started to panic.
That's not true. This report is fake.
But her weak explanation didn't convince anyone. Unable to withstand the verbal attacks from the netizens, Emily ended her live stream shortly after. Then my phone rang.
James, did you have to do this? I finally started making money, and you cut off my income.
But I was still live streaming.
No way, right? The streamer slanders others and then can't handle the backlash.
I donated $10,000 to her. I want my money back.
Refund. Refund. All the comments turned into demands for refunds.
The next day, Emily's account was banned, and under the pressure of the netizens, she was forced to return all the money. At that time, I defended Emily, saying, "It must be because my wife has good milk. She managed to make the baby so plump in just a month."
It must be because my wife has good milk. She managed to make the baby so plump in just a month.
Emily and I had been married for 7 years, and she had given me 2 daughters and a son. Speaking of our son, Emily risked her life to bring him into the world.
Being an older mother, the pregnancy is quite risky and unstable. If you decide to keep the baby, it will require constant care.
Emily, I'm not the kind of person who insists on having a son. We have 2 lovely daughters already. I'm content.
But Emily shook her head, her eyes red.
I need to give the Smith family a son to carry on the family name. This child has to be kept.
Emily's determination broke my heart. My parents, being conservative, were dissatisfied with Emily for having 2 daughters, though they didn't show it openly. Emily took it to heart. On the day of the delivery, Emily experienced severe complications and lost a significant amount of blood. It took 4,000 millimeters of blood transfusions to bring her back from the brink.
I realized how important Emily and the children were to me. Not long after, I quit my job on the construction site and found a job closer to home so I could be there every day.
John and I hurried to the police station. Before we even entered, we could hear Emily shouting from inside.
You heartless man. You scoundrel. Oh, how miserable my life is.
Miserable? My life is even worse. Enough talking, I want a divorce. And you owe me compensation for emotional distress. I want $500,000 or this won't end.
John and I walked in, and when Emily saw me, she rushed over as if seeing a savior.
James, you're the best. I was wrong, I really was wrong. Please forgive me. I'll give you another child, okay?
I looked at the police officer with a puzzled expression.
Do you have a particular fondness for having children? One wasn't enough, now 2. And now you want to have children for someone else?
A police officer came over to pull Emily away, while another officer took me aside to ask about my relationship with Emily.
We were ex-spouses, having divorced not long ago.
What was the reason for the divorce?
She had given me 3 children, but none of them were mine.
The officer couldn't help but stifle a laugh.
Don't get me wrong. That man and this woman got into a fight because the child she had wasn't his.
What? Turns to look at David, the child isn't his?
When the child had a blood test, they found the blood types didn't match. He asked the nurse, and she bluntly said that 2 A-type blood parents can't have a B-type blood child. Then he exploded, grabbed the woman's hair, and punched her.
After the mediation ended and we left the police station, David immediately did a paternity test with the 3 children. The results showed that the 2 daughters were his, but the son wasn't. Emily tried to use the same emotional manipulation on David that she had used on me, but David wasn't as easy to handle. Within a few days, Emily and David got their divorce papers. David's family was extremely biased towards having sons, so he didn't want the 2 daughters either. Emily had to take all 3 children back to her hometown. During this time, she repeatedly came to my house, waiting for me. Every time she saw me, she would tearfully apologize.
James, I was really wrong. Please give me another chance. I promise the next child will be yours.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be a fool again. Find someone else.